Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 2. I'm joined with, of course, Chris, and welcome back to episode 2 of The Larger Edge. Today we're going to be speaking about the importance of technology in the last decade or so and how loneliness has become such a massive prevalent issue in today's day and age. I think Chris and I both agree on the fact that, our smartphones and smart devices and, of course, social media has led to a big decline in personal interaction and how sometimes it kind of shelters into loneliness. So, first up, Chris, I just wanted to ask you about what is your take on how technology has evolved and how has it kind of played a role in resulting and culminating into some sense of loneliness?
First of all, to all our listeners and viewers, thank you for watching us and listening to us. And thank you for putting that question across around. I think it has caged us, simply put it that way. It has opened up a lot in a lot of fields, like medical field has advanced, technology has advanced, the world has shrunk, as we say, but it has caged us. Like you can find people hooked onto their phones, iPads, whatnots, and they just don't even bother to look outside, look across the table. I've seen people sitting across each other on a table, they just click onto their phones. Especially during this COVID situation, we've all been isolating, we've all been ourselves, but actually we've never even felt the need to reconnect that way because we always have internet across us, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, and it's just everywhere. So I feel it's a more of a caging situation that's happening more so than ever.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
about you?
No, I think I feel the same as well because at the end of the day, there used to be a time in our lives where we just like longed for conversations and I think honest kind of asking around, kind of checking in. I'm not saying it doesn't happen anymore, but I think the form of doing it has just changed and evolved. You kind of send a WhatsApp text, you'll send a Facebook message, you'll send an Instagram DM. It will not be picking up a phone call and just saying, hey, listen, I miss you. Let's talk. Are you feeling low? Are you feeling down? And I think I've often read about this and sort of seen this, and I couldn't say it in a better way than to say that loneliness is genuinely a silent killer. It is a battle you just fight with your own self, and I think it is something which you don't understand and realize up until it hits you the hardest, because it is a progression of feelings and like sort of emotions just bottled up inside of you.
Yeah,
And I think a big part, I often say, and this is kind of leading into my second question also, what you kind of put out there in terms of content on social media is what your potential audience is consuming. So if you're consuming something which is extremely detrimental to the way in which you feel or in the way in which you kind of put yourself out there, chances are the person listening to it is also feeling the same or perhaps even worse. Yeah.
it's all contagious, it's all communicable. Like even if you're on a Skype call or a Zoom call, what you tell me affects my brain. It's all in the subconscious mind. But before I proceed on to your second question, Zoran, I would like to just draw a little attention to something that you said, that loneliness is a silent killer, right? There are kinds of people that I've seen. Some people, they prefer to stay by themselves out of choice. They love their own company.
Sure.
For them, it's still healthy. But for most of the other people, this is a silent killer. So we might have a division there. People who just love their own company. I don't need anything, my books, my music, my Netflix, I'm happy. But for most of the other people who have never lived by themselves, for them, this is like a big pressure on their heads. Like, how am I going to stay by myself? And that's when your internet addiction comes across. Okay, let me just log into Facebook or Instagram, and that's when it all starts happening in a loop.
Yeah, and I think it also kind of draws your sense of attention back to the idea of what really matters in life. And sometimes, what you're essentially consuming is not very, very important to you or to your well-being. I'm not saying social media is not educational. Of course it is. Of course it's knowledgeable. Of course it's got your whereabouts of where you need to be, your favorite brands, or perhaps even the collaborations that social media influencers do. And me being one, I realize the importance of kind of being on platforms like Insta and Facebook. But I think probably the pandemic, I have to say this, and I think invariably this conversation just keeps coming up as to, while everything is the same in a reality of the world we live in, it's very different during a pandemic, right? So I've had this conversation with a lot of people multiple times, saying they're like, oh, it's okay, it'll be fine. I'm like, yeah, it will be fine in a normal world. In a pandemic world, you cannot say it will be fine, because show me it's fine first. I'm finding it very difficult to believe it. Like I've seen my phone 5,000 times a day. There are these locker settings of saying, your apps are going to change, which is actually a good thing now that actually, phone companies are doing. to kind of restrict you from seeing your phone consistently and constantly. Lack of a better activity to do, it just switches off automatically, which is a great thing. It is annoying at sometimes, but it's wonderful to kind of balance the act out. So I think there has to be some fine line in what you kind of really want to achieve, and I know for a fact it's very difficult sitting in your room. And for some people, as you mentioned a few minutes back, that loneliness can be a silent killer, and some people just choose not to sort of speak about it. And I think their decline is very progressional. But Chris, nowadays also a lot of people have begun to kind of, and because we touched upon loneliness, it is only natural to ask about the importance of mental health. How a lot of people are becoming a bit more courageous and brave, and sort of seeing it as not just a plague or an issue to society and just us, but also some sort of an awareness. It's some sort of informative way that if I speak about my own story, chances are someone else is listening, and it kind of gives them the rise to be able to feel the way they feel,
and the strength and the conviction that person is speaking. So can I, it's not something to be hidden about. Correct. But again, whatever you speak and put on social media around during these days, either you call it pressure or stress, your stuff can be taken either positively or negatively. There might be 10 people who support, who reconnect with you that yes, mental health is an issue. There might be 5 people who say, what are you talking about? It's not an issue. So there are both sides of the coin that's existing everywhere, right? We can't just say that this is a topic that everybody's going to reconnect with. Like I see across so many topics, especially in the South Asian market, people need to speak about, but the reception is uncertain. You don't know how people are going to react to your content. So that is also something that's happening. Internet is kind of affecting you negatively too. Some people take negative feedback very seriously, and that also kind of, prevents them from reaching out for help. They'll be like, I will just shut myself down. That's okay. Maybe there's something for me. And that's harmful. That's dangerous. That's something we need to come out of.
I think it's very interesting. Kind of you speak about how the dangers of the internet also, because essentially when it kind of was the biggest of invention of mankind, I guess that was never the intention of kind of making it these kinds of levels of dangers that it's actually reached in the last 20 years, 30 years. But again, like everything has a change, and like everything kind of has a progression to it. I think everything has a bit of a life, and I just we can keep constantly saying this, and you and I keep talking about this, because every conversation is about, I hope this phase ends soon, I hope it ends soon, I hope it ends soon, and then episode after episode we're just discussing that.
Conscious decisions, Zoran. Like we are mature people. My concern is more for the young teens or the adolescents who just gotten technology at the brink of their hands. It's more conscious decision that, okay, I'll choose to support this and I choose not to support that. There is content everywhere, plus content, bad content, harmful content. You need to be more aware of what you're supporting, what you're putting in your conscious mind, because your subconscious mind plays out the entire game, and that's when you start getting affected. So it's a balance you need to strike out.
I couldn't agree more. And I think to kind of draw this entire discussion, just probably lastly, I want to ask you, what is perhaps the takeaway or the advice, or your 2 cents about how the current generation can handle loneliness, which is a loaded question, and I get that, and how can they perhaps bring about technology as a part of a source of in terms of knowledge and information, and not be weighed down by what it's putting out there, because there's a lot of stuff out there, as we mentioned. And I think what can the generation do? What can people do?
Look, Zoran, I'll be very short on this question. This generation has already gotten technology. They've already seen the pandemic. They've been inside their houses for a year. So the boat has rocked that way. But for the next generation, for my future generation, I'll only tell them, look, it's not too bad to go old school sometimes. It's not harmful to be old school. Read a hard copy book. Go out and play with friends in the field, and not just, Counter-Strike or PUBG and all. So go the old-fashioned way. It doesn't harm. That's all.
Like I think Chris mentioned, go the old-fashioned way, do the old school things, because they actually bring out the best of results. And I think it'll kind of give you a real mental detox, nothing else at all. Well, thanks once again for kind of joining into everybody. This has been fantastic. Chris and I love kind of talking about various different aspects, and of course we'll have a guest on the show in the coming episodes. But stay tuned on The Larger Edge. This is of course episode 2, and lots more coming up. Cheers. Thanks.